Humanity has long had an obsession with death, with it being an inevitable part of life. One part of that obsession has been the possibility of circumventing death, either through a form of immortality, or the ability to return from death. While the idea is appealing to most, the type of return that zombies offer is simply awful. Whether it's the traditional voodoo zombie, the ghoul-like movie zombie, or even the raging swarm style of video games, there is no good outcome. Luckily, in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe, the zombie type is a catch-all term for anything undead. From skeletons and spirits to demons and vampires, Yu-Gi-Oh has some great zombie options. For this list, we'll be looking at the best zombies and zombie support cards from before the synchro era. And starting off our list at number 10, we have the King of Skull Servants, a level 1 dark zombie monster with question mark attack and 0 defense. He was first released in 2005's The Lost Millennium, and was most recently reprinted in 2023's Speed Duel Tournament Pack 6. King of Skull Servants' effect is that its original attack is equal to the combined Skull Servants and King of Skull Servants in your graveyard times 1,000. When the king is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish a Skull Servant or a different King of the Skull Servants in your grave to special summon the king back. While there has been a slew of support for the King of Skull Servants in the form of the white cards, in classic Yu-Gi-Oh, there was only the original servant and the king himself. At first, this doesn't seem good, having to run 3 weak vanilla monsters in your deck just to help the king get strong. However, both the king and the servant are more useful than you might think. Metamorphosis is a card that can tribute a monster to cheat out a fusion monster with the same level. And since both skulls are level 1, you can summon the best Metamorphosis target, Thousand Eyes Restrict. This game-warping card can turn one of your opponent's monsters into an equip card for itself, and is a great alternative way of removal. Additionally, since King of the Skull Servant is a low level, he can attack through good stall cards like Gravity Bind and Level Limit Area B. Finally, the original Skull Servant can always be used for discard effects since its best use is in the graveyard, such as for Tribute of the Doom or Raigeki Break. King of the Skull Servants would continue to get more support cards over the years, with at least one coming out every few years. What started off as a silly joke involving every player's favorite skeleton has now become a full family of shenanigan-prone skellies. However, that shift to beloved family came about far after the synchro era of Yu-Gi-Oh began, with the king not making as big of an impact on classic Yu-Gi-Oh as the rest of the cards on our list. And at number 9, we have Goblin Zombie, a level 4 dark zombie monster with 1100 attack and 1050 defense. It was first released in 2008's Phantom of Darkness as a secret rare, alongside Dark Grepher and Dark Armed Dragon. Talk about really stiff competition. Goblin Zombie's effect is that if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, they have to send the top card of their deck to the graveyard. If Goblin is sent from the field to the graveyard, you have to add one zombie monster with 1200 defense or less from your deck to your hand. Goblin Zombie's mill effect can be a double-edged sword. Ideally, you want the effect to send a monster that can't be revived from the graveyard, or a spell or trap card, as those are harder to return to the hand. However, at the time, it was possible to mill something beneficial for your opponent, such as a Destiny Hero Malicious or Treeborn Frog, both of which could fuel your opponent's tribute plays. Goblin Zombie's true power is tied to its second effect, which essentially makes it a zombie version of Witch of the Black Forest, a banned card at the time. Traditionally, most of the old zombie cards have very low defense, which allowed Goblin Zombie to make any zombie strategy more consistent. With search capabilities like that, how did Goblin Zombie end up this low on this list? Well, that's because of when it came out. With Phantom of Darkness being released in February 13th, 2008, only 6 months before the release of Starter Deck Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, which is the hard cutoff point of our list, Goblin Zombie proceeded to see play after this synchro era began, even getting semi-limited on March 1st, 2009. But in the classic era, it just wasn't really a powerhouse yet. And at number 8, we have Despair from the Dark, a level 8 dark zombie monster with 2800 attack and 3000 defense. This spooky dude was released in Dark Crisis back in 2003, and has been reprinted in 6 other packs. Despite this, it never got a rarity higher than common. Despair from the Dark's effect is that if it's sent to the graveyard from the hand or deck by your opponent's card effect, it special summons itself. The special summon is mandatory as long as the conditions are met and there are no external cards preventing special summons. In the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, the game was rife with hand rip effects, far more so than the modern game. The 2 strongest hand rips, the Forceful Sentry and Confiscation, allowed you to choose which card to rip and granted knowledge of your opponent's hand, which quickly led to their banning on the first ban list. However, a majority of the other hand rips spared from this list were random, allowing Despair from the Dark its time to shine. With Delinquent Duo, a spell card that forces your opponent to discard 2 cards from their hand being mandatory in all GOAT format era decks, it's fairly easy to trigger Despair's effect. Other commonly played cards that could trigger Despair includes, but are not limited to, Don Zalug, Morphine Jar, and Card Destruction. Once summoned, Despair from the Dark is an annoying monster to deal with, as most easily summoned monsters can't beat over its huge 2800 attack, meaning your opponent will typically have to waste a card effect of destruction to remove it from the field. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime, Despair was a source of trauma for Theodore Hamilton, as it was used against him during the Lost Incident, an event in which he and 5 other children were hooked up to a VR equipment and tortured. Talk about dark for a children's anime. Despair was additionally used by Ridley and the Shepherd in duels against Theodore. While it's not uncommon to trigger Despair from the Dark's effect, it is still a very niche countercard. Normally, this would lead to a card like this being considered decent at best, but zombie decks have other methods to cheat Despair out. In fact, the next card on this list will let you cheat out almost any main deck zombie monster. Beckoning you from the tomb, Call of the Mummy is our number 7. This continuous spell card was first released in 2003's Pharaonic Guardian and has since been reprinted in 3 different zombie structure decks. Call of the Mummy's effect is that once per turn, you can special summon 1 zombie monster from your hand. You must control no monsters to activate and resolve this effect. Call of the Mummy is insane for older Yu-Gi-Oh!, as you could essentially summon almost any main deck zombie in the game, including the beefy Despair from the Dark as previously mentioned. Call also makes it easier to run non-zombie tribute monsters in a zombie deck, allowing you to summon a level 5 or 6 monster from an empty board, with Goblin Zombie probably being the best zombie to tribute. Being able to sideboard powerful tributes like Jinzo and Zaborg the Thunder Monarch in any classic deck is a huge plus. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains anime, Call of the Mummy was used by Ridley to first summon Plague Wolf and later Despair from the Dark. The only downside of the card is that once you control a monster, you can't use its effect anymore. If that wasn't the case, it probably would be used in more modern zombie decks. Still though, in classic Yu-Gi-Oh! There were several good monsters to summon using Call's effect, one of them being the next card on our list. And at number 6, we have Ryu Kokki, a level 6 dark zombie monster with 2400 attack and 2000 defense. It was first released in 2004's Invasion of Chaos and was most recently reprinted in 2023's Invasion of Chaos 25th Anniversary Edition. What's old is new again, I suppose. Ryu Kokki's effect is that when it battles a spellcaster or warrior monster, at the end of the damage step, destroy that monster. While this effect currently is incredibly circumstantial, it was actually pretty clutch in classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Warriors and spellcasters were some of the best monsters in early Yu-Gi-Oh!, with 2 commonly played boss monsters fitting the typing, Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, and Dark Magician of Chaos. These monsters often required card effects and destructions to be dealt with, and Ryu Kokki offers another way to do so. Ryu's effect might be related to the Konami video game character it seems to be based on. In Getsu Fumoden, Ryu Kotsuki is a demon lord and the main antagonist of the 1986 Nintendo Famicom game. They fight the Getsu clan with the protagonist of the game, Getsu Fuma, having a similar effect that works on fiends and zombies instead. Interestingly enough, there seems to be an intentional effort on Konami's part to keep Ryu Kotsuki's gender ambiguous for some reason. Ryu Kokki's stat line is good for a 1 tribute monster, giving the zombie decks a great beatdown potential. Call of the Mummy makes summoning Ryu Kokki easy, and there are actually 2 additional simple ways for it to make it to the field. However, those ways are cards that will appear later on in our list, so you'll just have to keep watching to find out why this card was played so much. And at number 5, we have Vampire Lord, a level 5 dark zombie monster with 2000 attack and 1500 defense. He was first released into 2003's Dark Crisis, where he was one of the 2 Chase secret rares. Vampire Lord's first effect is that when he causes battle damage to an opponent, you declare a monster, spell, or trap, and your opponent sends 1 card of that type you declared from their deck to the grave. Its second effect is that once per turn, if it's destroyed and sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card effect, during your next standby phase, it comes back. So, Vampire Lord's first effect is pretty bad nowadays, but in classic Yu-Gi-Oh! There were almost no cards which activated their effects when sent directly from the deck to the grave. Calling Monster was relatively safe as long as your opponent didn't have a way to bring it back or wasn't on Chaos, while Calling Spell was less safe as many decks utilized Magician of Faith to recycle them. On the other hand, Calling Trap is almost always safe as only trap-heavy decks would run Mask of Darkness to recycle them. Vampire Lord's second effect was also useful, as it really pressured your opponent to destroy Lord by battle. When it was first released, the ban list didn't exist yet, meaning Raigeki and Dark Hole were both at 1. It was pointless to use either spell to destroy Vampire Lord alone, and even when used to destroy multiple monsters, Lord essentially allowed you to recover some lost field advantage. Even after Raigeki and Dark Hole were banned, Lord still helped mitigate the effects of other multiple monster destruction cards like Mirror Force and Tribe Infecting Virus, as well as nullifying any gain to be had from single target destructions like Raigeki Break or Night Assailant. In Yu-Gi-Oh! DM, Vampire Lord was used by Seto Kaiba in his battle against Noah Kaiba, where it's seen using its revive effect after being destroyed by Fissure. In Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Lord is used by Camilla to help fulfill the summoning conditions of her ace monster, Vampire Genesis. This shouldn't come as a surprise though, since Camilla is a vampire herself, being based on Carmilla from the 1872 story, The Dark Blue. And you better guard your soul, as our number 4 is Spirit Reaper, and this Grim Reaper is ready to collect. This is a level 3 Dark Zombie with 300 attack and 200 defense, and was first released in 2003's Pharaonic Guardian, and most recently reprinted in the 2024's Quarter Century Bonanza. Spirit Reaper can't be destroyed by battle. However, it is destroyed whenever it's targeted by an effect that resolves when it's still face up. Additionally, whenever Spirit Reaper inflicts battle damage by direct attack, your opponent that took the damage must discard one random card from their hand. Spirit Reaper is very similar to Vampire Lord in being really annoying to properly get rid of. While Vampire Lord requires destruction by battle, Spirit Reaper's destruction by only card effect proved to be even more annoying, where several turns may pass as one player waits to draw the out. This makes Reaper great for stalling and slower strategies, and its survivability makes it great for tribute summoning. The very specific wording on how it can be destroyed by targeting creates a lot of interesting interactions. Book of Moon doesn't destroy Spirit Reaper, despite targeting it, because after it resolves, Spirit Reaper will be face down. Cards like Monster Reborn work on Reaper because it resolves before Reaper hits the field, while other forms of revival like Premature Burial or Call the Haunted don't. In fact, all equipped spells that don't negate effects will trigger Spirit Reaper's self-destruction. With that said, there is still the matter of Reaper's discard effect. This is more of a bonus that makes the card better, although there are better ways to force a discard such as Don Zalug or Thestalos the Firestorm Monarch. However, Spirit Reaper has easily earned a spot in our list, and in many GOAT format deck lists as well. Wise from yugioh, taking the bronze for our number 3 is a Zombie Master. He's a level 4 Dark Zombie monster with a respectable 1800 attack and 0 defense. It was first released in 2007's Tactical Evolution. Interestingly enough, when Zombie Master was converted to Speed Duel, he was turned into a skill card for Bones. However, after I explain this effect, it may become apparent why. Zombie Master can once per turn discard a monster from your hand to target a level 4 zombie monster in either graveyard. If the effect is uninterrupted, the zombie is summoned. Zombie Master must remain face up on the field for the effect to activate and resolve. This effect is a soft once per turn, meaning each copy of Zombie Master can activate their effect during the same turn. The discard and targeting part of the effect is a cost to activate it, meaning you already need to have a target in the graveyard to activate before you discard. However, if you do have a zombie card in your grave already, and you discard a level 4 or lower zombie, you can still special summon the discarded card. While this card would get even better shortly into the Synchro era, with Zombie World coming out in 2008's Zombie World Structure deck, and the release of the tuner Plague Spreader Zombie, Zombie Master is still great in classic Yu-Gi-Oh! And already works well with 3 cards from earlier in our list. Spirit Reaper doesn't self-destruct from Zombie Master's effect. Goblin Zombie can search for Master and then be revived by him, and King of the Skull Servants can both be summoned by Master, while using the original Skull Servant as a discard fodder. With that kind of power, it's easy to see why the Speed Duel card version made the effect a once per duel. And at number 2, we have Book of Life, a normal spell card that was first released in 2003's Pharaonic Guardian. And another interesting Speed Duel fact, Book was actually printed in 3 different Speed Duel sets. Book of Life's effect is to target 1 zombie monster in your grave and 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard. Afterwards, it special summons the first target and banishes the second. The activation of Book requires both targets to be in each graveyard, but the resolution doesn't. This means any spell speed to effect that moves one of the targets from the grave doesn't stop the other target from summoning or banishing. Book of Life is essentially a more restrictive Monster Reborn, except those restrictions allowed Book to be at 3 copies, while Monster Reborn was already limited when Book was first released. By the time the first Forbidden List rolled around, Monster Reborn was banned, and the best Grave Revival cards were limited, while Book of Life remained untouched. Outside of the obviously great benefit of Graveyard Revival, the banishing effect is also very useful. Blackluster Soldier and With the Beginning and Chaos Sorcerer, 2 powerful monsters of the era, required you to banish a light and dark monster from your grave to summon. If you banished the only light or dark monster they had in the grave using Book of Life, your opponent would be forced to get another one in the grave so they could summon their Chaos monster. Other great banished targets included the classic era Treeborn Frog, Destiny Hero Disc Commander, and Green Baboon, Defender of the Forest. Book of Life is one half of the reason zombie decks were so good in classic Yu-Gi-Oh! However, the other half is what truly pushes zombies over the top, which is why it's at the top of the list. But before we move on to that, we have some honorable mentions. We'll start with Card of Safe Return, a continuous spell card released in Labyrinth of Nightmare, which has the effect that when a card is summoned from your graveyard, except during the damage step, you draw one card. This is technically a generic card, but is extremely abusable by zombie decks, which have both Book of Life and Zombie Master, allowing you to recover the resources used to bring out monsters. Tribute to the Doom is a normal spell card released in Metal Raiders, which has the effect to discard one card to target one monster in the field and destroy it. While this is a -1 in card advantage, you can use it to set up for amazing Book of Life plays by discarding a high-level zombie monster. Tribute to the Doom is also generic, but in most cases, Raigeki Break is just a better choice. Our last honorable mention is Illblood, a level 6 Dark Zombie Gemini monster with 2100 attack and 800 defense, released alongside Zombie Master and Tactical Evolution. Being a Gemini monster, Illblood is treated as a normal monster in the field or in the graveyard, and it can be normal summoned while it's a normal monster on the field to gain its effect. After that, once per turn, you can special summon a zombie from your hand or either graveyard, but destroy all zombies summoned this way when Illblood leaves the field. Blood is a little stronger than Zombie Master, but it comes at the cost of being a little harder to get started. While Double Summon, a card great to use with Gemini monsters, was out at the same time as Illblood, another great Gemini support card, Supervise, wouldn't come out until 2009. And at the top of our list at number 1 is Pyramid Turtle, a level 4 Earth Zombie monster with 1200 attack and 1400 defense. It was first released in Pharaonic Guardian, and is actually the only zombie monster on this list that didn't have the Dark attribute. Pyramid Turtle's effect is that it's when destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one zombie monster from your deck with 2000 or less defense. Turtle is insane, literally acting as a floater that summons most zombie monsters in classic Yu-Gi-Oh!, allowing you to design your deck as a toolbox for all your needs. Pyramid Turtle can summon out all the monsters on this list, bar Despair from the Dark. Just like all floaters, Turtle can even purposefully charge into a stronger monster to use his effect immediately. In fact, Pyramid Turtle is so good that another floater, Giant Rat, is often used to get Turtle on the field faster. Another great thing about Turtle is its synergy with Book of Life, because it ends up in the grave to use its special summon effect in the first place, allowing you to summon again for another special summon next turn. And the best part of all this is Pyramid Turtle is a 3 throughout all formats, meaning even if other zombie monsters got limited, you always had ways to fish him out of your deck. Alright, and that's our list. If you think there are any other zombie monsters we may have listed, or have any ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.